Okay, so now I'm going to tell my story about the chateau. Um, as some of you may be aware, it has come to recent light that a lot of abuse was allowed in the chateau, sexual assault, and a lot of girls who were part of it have come forward since. Um, I'm going to be one of them. Just a few of the other things that the Chateau did as well. You know, they were super, super racist. They appropriated the Ankh symbol and made it their own by putting cat ears on it and selling it for a ridiculous profit. They pretty much never accepted women or people of color. They had like their token black model. They were also very fat phobic. They had their token plus size model, pretty much. But it was very white, skinny, you know, and I know I'm a part of that problem. I'm one of those. So I just want to start off by addressing those things because most of this video is going to be about what I lived through personally, but I do recognize what other people dealt with. Trigger warning now in general, there is mention of sexual assault. Actually, it's, like a whole story, 2 stories. There's also a story about like animal abuse and neglect. I'll give another trigger warning just before I actually talk about those things. But yeah, let's delve into the other stuff first. You're gonna have to forgive me. I have like a whole little like notebook. So I first met Isabella at Logan and Daly's wedding, December 10th, 2016. Her and I sat at the same table as per the seating arrangements. She immediately commented on my metal agent provocateur collar and said she had the same one and she loved it. And I mean, that's basically what she ripped off for her collars. Like, I know she's getting them through another supplier, but initially, she had the agent provocateur collar, which I will show you right now. So it's a metal collar. It's got gems. It's got the little ring on front. Excuse mine. It's very old and dirty. I need to clean it. It's got makeup all over it. But this is the Agent Provocateur collar. So she came out with these collars. Anyways. She immediately took to me at the wedding and was complimenting me, basically love bombing me. And if you don't know what love bombing is, it is a manipulation tactic where you bomb someone with love so that way they feel special and important to you. And then you later use that against them. She invited me to the Denver Vampire Ball, which took place or was going to take place in February of 2017. And then she said, "You're exactly what we're looking for." I now realize that what she meant was skinny and white. At the time, I just thought maybe she liked my fashion sense because it was a wedding. I was dressed to the nines and I just thought it was based on fashion. So of course I was like, yeah. She was beautiful and seemed sweet and genuine, and was, I now realize, love bombing me. She insisted that I attend the Denver Ball, and that there was a costume contest, and whoever won the costume contest would be guaranteed a spot at the Chateau. So that was the first I had heard of the website. Between the time of the wedding in December and the ball, friended her on Facebook, and through Instagram and Facebook kind of got the gist of like what the aesthetic was that they were going for, but I still didn't know anything about the website itself. I previously modeled for Cosplay Deviants and Zivity mostly, so I kind of figured it was like that. And when I finally did look at the website, it did say that like the models get paid and stuff. I went to the ball and I stayed in town for a couple days afterwards, getting to know her more. It was more love bombing, more insistence that I do shoots for the site, attend events, etc. During this time, I learned how the website actually worked. The only way to get paid was to become Precious level. The website at the time said that to reach a Precious level, you had to earn X amount of points for each tier. So I don't remember, but for example, say like, lowest tier was 0 points. Next tier is 1,000 points. Next tier is 2,000 points, and so on. The way to earn points was through accepted photo sets and attending events. So I immediately aspired to that and submitted several sets. All got accepted and used on the website. I never got paid, but I knew that I wasn't going to for the first ones. The system of earning points through attending events was basically a way for her to get free entertainment for the men, thus selling more tickets to them because of the guarantee of a large amount of mostly submissive women in attendance. Not limited to the vampire balls, it was also more private Chateau hosted events like Beltane, Opium in New Orleans. So they had an event during the vampire ball, or the weekend of, called Opium. That was the Chateau event. They also hosted parties at swingers clubs. They were all supposed to earn points. My profile was never updated on the website, even though I not only attended but performed at and helped host a lot of these events, as well as submitting photo sets. And yes, my cat's just going to clean himself in the background. That's fine. He can hang out. So I did the math myself, and based on what points events were supposed to earn you and photo sets were supposed to earn you, I should have been like top tier Precious level at that point. Therefore making money on my photo sets. The newer ones, at least. So I messaged Izzy about this, and she told me that Daniel handles that. And I messaged him, and he told me to add up everything for him, like itemize every event I went to and every photo set and tally it and send it to him. And I did, and I never got a response back. And nothing ever got updated on the website. And because I had been love bombed and manipulated to do whatever they wanted, I still kept submitting photo sets for free. So shortly after that, they actually did away with the points system, and then it was, I think, just based on how many photo sets had been accepted. So of course, as soon as I'm like, oh, like, I've done all these events for free for you, then they're like, oh, well, now events don't count anymore. It's only photo sets. They still didn't add mine up after that, though. They used those collars as an incentive to level up. Besides the fact that, like, you might get paid for your photo sets. Originally, the collars, you could only have access to purchase them if you were at a certain level, and there was, like, a collar for each level of kitten. Because I was attending every event possible at my own expense, Izzy and I grew very close. Eventually, the collars became available for anyone to buy, regardless of your level, at a ridiculous markup. So this is where I'm actually also going to say in the beginning, so this is one of the first collars. Let's see if I can get it to like not. I don't know if you'll be able to see it. So the gems are like inlaid into the metal, and they just are nicer. And then when it came to the newer collars, there you go. Okay, so these are just glued on. That's the newer collars. And sloppily at that, you can see the glue on some of them. So over time, the quality of the collars even went down, and the prices went up. And it didn't matter who you were, you could buy one. But of course, to appease Izzy and win over her favor and fit in, everyone was suckered into buying or wanting to buy these collars. Now, luckily at the time, I had a partner who knew that this was something I was passionate about and wanted to help me succeed, help me get in to what I thought was, an amazing group of people. So I had someone that bought my collars for me. If I had spent my own money, I would be pissed, especially the ones where the rhinestones are just glued on. And I don't even think she used E6000 because they fall off. Like I make crafts and stuff, and I've glued things on better than that. Now, on to a subject that I have yet to hear or see anyone else mention. What it's actually like when you stay at the physical house, the Chateau. It's the house on a normal day. No events, no film crew, just daily life. Isabella, quite frankly, is a slob. There's just no other way to put it. The entire house is disgusting. The kitchen, filthy. I mean, there was never a clean dish in the house. The counters were like all just so greasy. They would leave raw meat like sitting out on the counters because they would cook and only cook like half of it and leave the rest sitting out, and it was just horrifying. They have several bedrooms there. One of them was just an entire like hoarder's room full of her stuff. The guest room that I stayed in also was just like full of clothing, like just all over the floor. Had nowhere to go. Their laundry room was just a giant pile of dirty laundry. And yes, I am literally airing their dirty laundry right now. But the reason why I'm saying this is because I think it's important to highlight just how much everything is a lie. Because they give off this air of luxury and having such a beautiful home, and the house itself is beautiful, but they don't maintain it. They don't take care of it. Now they'll do a rush clean a couple days before a party or filming, and I helped with a lot of those. But yeah, she's just a very neglectful person. She's neglectful of her home. She's neglectful of her kittens. She's neglectful of her so-called friends. And she's neglectful of her animals. Which brings me to my next issue. And trigger warning, here's where I talk about the animal abuse. So she, when I was staying there, had 2 dogs and 2 birds. This was before she got Crowley, although I will also discuss that. The 2 dogs and 2 birds were in the kitchen, all in cages way too small for them. The birds' cages were tiny for the size that they were. The dogs' crates were so small they couldn't even stand up in them. The Pomeranian one was actually in a cat carrier. They never let those dogs out, ever. And this is probably the thing that I feel guiltiest about, because I would stay there and hear the dogs howling all day and night, stuck in those crates, pissing themselves, shitting themselves, being stuck in there with their own filth. And all of those cages and crates were in the kitchen, so the kitchen always smelled like animal waste. Unless it was right before a party, then they would finally clean it up. So the people who only ever went to parties never saw, like, all of this. But yeah, I should have called animal services or let someone know, and I didn't. And I do feel guilty about that. I know that since then the Pomeranian has found a new home. I don't know about the other dog. But right next to where the dog's tiny cages were 2 small bird cages. Both of her birds, I don't remember what kind of birds they were, exotic birds. Their cages were always filthy. Their water was always empty. They were so close to the dogs' crates that, like, they were constantly right next to these dogs that were howling and crying. One of the birds had started doing that thing that they do where they are so stressed that they pluck out all their feathers that have, like, no feathers left. And instead of taking care of her existing animals, she went and got a macaw, another bird, a big one at that, a needy one. Those are very needy birds. And that's Crowley. And she let him have free reign of the house. And I mean, like, he would attack guests. He would shit everywhere. The couches there were just covered in bird shit. She would feed him whatever she was eating at the time. Shit that I know was not safe for him, you know, like chips, crackers, prosciutto, chicken nuggets, like just whatever she was eating, she would be feeding it to him. It was just horrible. Like, I don't know how that bird is still alive. Or I don't even know if it's still alive because I've had her blocked for so long. Maybe it's not. I didn't speak out on that ever for fear of retaliation because at that point I was so deeply involved. And I didn't want to lose all my friends, even though I did eventually lose most of them anyways. But, okay. Next talking point. So, there was 2 different filmings at the house that Vice did. There was the Vice documentary, and there was the episode of Slut Ever. I was there for the filming of both. It was all lies. And, I mean, pretty much, I mean, of course, like, it was all white models except for the token black girl or the token fat girl. But yeah, so before both of those, she sat a select few kittens down, the ones that were closest, myself included, and gave us scripts, pretty much. You know, we were told to say that, you know, it's all like a sorority and it's like a dream and you know, sisterhood. And while I do absolutely consider a lot of the women that I met their sisters, just the way that she had it framed, that's not what it was about. It was more about her making money off of vulnerable women and creepy dudes. So yeah, she just was super, I mean, she used everyone. Next talking point I already touched on a little bit is the racism, fat phobia, and also the transphobia. If you spend some time on the internet, I'm also going to link a friend of mine's video of her story, and in it she also has screenshots of other people's stories. There was a lot of racism, and people have actually found old archives of Isabella's writing straight up being racist. She used the G slur for Romani people. She argues why, like, racism should be allowed. I'm not gonna delve into all that. This is more about my personal story. So on the transphobia that I personally witnessed, I had a trans friend who was gorgeous. She wanted to join the Chateau, and I was all for it. And I encouraged her. I was like, look, like, go, like, do a boudoir photo shoot and submit an application. I'll talk to Izzy, you know, I'm real close with her. I'll see if I can, like, bump you up in the application list, because they were getting, like, hundreds of applications a month. So I talked to Izzy after my friend sent her set in, and I said, hey, like, this is my friend. She's really cool. I think she would be great for the group, for the vibe, you know. And Izzy straight up said, we don't accept trans people at this time. And I said, well, I understand that your rule is women only, but she is a woman, and she sent you this beautiful photo set. I saw it. It was gorgeous. And she was just like, we're just not doing trans people right now. Maybe at another time. That's literally what she said to me. And, I mean, that should have been it for me, right? But it wasn't. A lot of girls that I met there are amazing, and I still consider sisters. But for us, or to Izzy, it was more like, worship me, and maybe you'll be lucky enough to be a top kitten. Total cult mentality. She would love bomb in the beginning to get you in, to hook you. And then once you got involved and so deep in it, she would breadcrumb you, which is another manipulation tactic where someone gives you just enough to make you want to stay. But they don't actually care about you. They don't actually take care of you. They're just using you and they give you just enough love and attention to make sure that you remain under their power. And I've watched her breadcrumb a lot of women. It worked on me. It worked because people are susceptible to that. I did worship her. I did work my ass off to help her, to promote her events, to submit photo sets, to help clean up the house before shit, like I said. And the way that I got treated after that, on to the sexual abuse and assault. So, trigger warning, stop here if you do not want to hear fairly detailed accounts of sexual assault. This will mostly be my own personal experiences, but I will also touch on other instances that happened involving this. So I want to start with talking about unsafe kink. So BDSM in general is supposed to be safe, sane, and consensual. The Chateau was my first introduction, really, to more public or group settings. The only time I had ever really explored BDSM before that was with one or two select people. But these were, events where they had 20 or so people, sometimes more, and a lot of them were participating in BDSM. So my first instance of witnessing this happen was at the Denver Vampire Ball 2017 private pre-party. That was my first Chateau event, and everyone there was drunk, which is fine. But not everyone there, a lot of people there were also participating in BDSM activities. So one instance that stands out is a man, Sir Christopher, who has been mentioned in other videos and posts and will have his own story later on in this video. But I witnessed him with multiple different kittens, tying them up and spanking them, and they were clearly intoxicated. I was also intoxicated. I did not get spanked. I was there with two other partners, and I was just watching. I wasn't participating. Back then, I didn't know better. I've learned a lot more about BDSM and kink since then. Even if you have played with that partner many, many times in the past, and even if you pre-discussed or negotiated terms when you were both sober, it's still not safe to be doing stuff like that when you're drunk, when either or both parties or all parties involved are drunk. Because even if you consent beforehand, you can rescind consent at any time. But when you're drunk, it may be harder. And when you're drunk, you're more vulnerable. And when you're the top or whatever and you're drunk, you can fuck up and really hurt someone. You can lose control. There's just a whole multitude of reasons why that is unsafe. That I didn't know at the time. But while I was watching it, it just felt wrong to me. It just seemed predatory to me. I definitely never saw aftercare after any of it. I would see, multiple instances where girls were tied up and doing things at parties, and the top would never do aftercare. At the time, I didn't know better. But there absolutely were people there that knew better. Isabella, who years prior made like BDSM 101 type videos on her YouTube, should have known better. Her husband, Daniel, absolutely should have known better because he's way older, has been in the kink scene a long time. No one said anything. No one did anything. They encouraged it. That they even included it in the Vice documentary. I don't know. Anyways, now on to I'll talk a little bit about Father Sebastian. So, because I was involved with, not a part of, but just friends with at the time, the Vampire Court of Austin, I already knew about Father Sebastian enough to know to avoid him. So I did. But Isabella was dating him on again, off again, pretty much the whole time I was involved with the Chateau. And multiple stories came out of him like sexually assaulting women, and she just ignored it. And it was even some of her own kittens and stuff, and she just kept dating him and ignored it. And I'm just mentioning this part to establish the pattern, because this is something that she continually does, and it's something that she did to me. This Sir Christopher guy. My personal story, anytime I was around him, he was always touchy-feely with me, and I didn't like it. But I tried to ignore it. And then after the Beltane event in 2018, I guess. Yeah. I stayed in Colorado for like a week at the Chateau, and he was staying there for a couple days as well. So one day, him and Izzy and I were on the couch watching movies, just hanging out, and he kept like grabbing my leg and trying to like pet me, and I wasn't into it, so I would like get up and move to the other side of the couch, like on the other side of Izzy, or like a different couch, and then like 30 minutes later he'd follow me over there. Like Izzy would get up to go get something and he would scooch over, or he would follow me to the other side, and it was just like constant. So eventually I finally said, you know what, like I'm gonna go to bed. And it was super early in the night, and I'm a night owl, but I was like, I'm gonna go to bed. Izzy had given me the guest room, and he was like, oh, I guess I'll come up too. And I was like, no, like I want to sleep alone. And there was like that awkward silence, and Izzy was like, oh, it's fine. You can sleep on the couch, Christopher. Like Christopher can sleep on the couch. And I was like, okay, great, thanks. So I go up, go to bed. I was just laying there wide awake because I wasn't actually tired. I just wanted to get away from that situation. I had nowhere to go. I didn't have a car with me there. I didn't even know how to drive. And they live out in the middle of nowhere. Like getting an Uber there would have been impossible. So I was kind of stuck. So Sir Christopher, after Izzy went to bed, came and climbed into the bed with me. He like opened my door, climbed into the bed with me, and said, I just want to cuddle. And I felt obligated to do so because he's Izzy's best friend, and he was there all the time. And if I pissed him off, then I felt like I was going to lose my place in the Chateau. So, we started off just cuddling, and like if it had just been that, I probably would have been okay with it. But he did like start grabbing my breasts and my ass, and I kept trying to like push his hands off and telling him no, and then finally I was like, look, dude, like I don't want to sleep with you, leave me alone. And he like rolled over away from me to the other side of the bed. I said, well, fine, good night then, and went to sleep. And I didn't sleep at all that night, not a wink. I just laid there awake, waiting for him to wake up and leave the room, which he did. And then when I finally came downstairs, Izzy was downstairs, and she was like, oh, how did you sleep? And I said, I didn't. And she said, why? I said, well, you know, Chris came into the room and wouldn't leave. And she just giggled and said, sounds like fun. It wasn't fun. But with a response like that, I just didn't say anything. I literally just didn't say anything. So after that, at that time that happened, Christopher was dating a kitten that was very close to Izzy. We're going to call her Kitten X. She came over later that day, and Christopher wasn't there for some reason. I think he went home because he did live in Colorado at the time. So she came over, and in front of Izzy, we all sat down together. I told her what happened, and she cried, and she apologized to me. And that was the first time that I actually felt like anyone cared. That's pretty much the only time I felt like anyone cared. Anyone that I told. And even sitting there watching Kitten X cry for me and apologize to me, Izzy still didn't do anything. Shortly thereafter, Kitten X and Christopher broke up, and Kitten X does not live in Colorado. He proceeded to stalk her. He sent her flowers, even though she requested him not to. And then he showed up in the city that she lives in, and he bought a flight without telling her, showed up and tried to meet up with her and stuff. And that Kitten X was very close to Izzy. And even after all that happened to her with Christopher, Izzy still kept him around. Like, even the people that she called her best friends, she didn't listen to them. That brings me to my worst experience. So, Jeff Lawson is a photographer for the Chateau for a long time, also part of their Burning Man camp, also part of their events. He was very involved. And he was very involved because we were all easy prey to him. I know a lot of women have their own stories about him. Here's mine. So beyond him taking a bunch of photos of me and me never getting them back or them getting posted on the website, and him being part of the unsafe BDSM practices at kink parties, he was also tying up drunk kittens and stuff. So for the Denver Vampire Ball 2018 Valhalla, I went with my then partner, Logan, and his wife, Daly. They got a hotel, and I believe at the time I couldn't afford a hotel of my own. And regardless, Jeff offered me a room to stay in. And at that point, like, he hadn't been creepy to me yet. And Isabella had assured me that he was safe. He assured all of us that he was safe. So I stayed at his house. A couple other kittens were staying there. One of them was he had like a kitten that was a roommate, and then there was a kitten from out of town that was staying in the living room. And he told me I could stay in the spare room. So I went to the ball itself and got really drunk because I like to drink and party. We get back to his house. I immediately pass out on the bed. And I didn't remember anything in the morning. I do now. And it's just flashes of him on top of me. Not to mention using crops and flogs on me and stuff, like full BDSM. I don't really want to go into too much detail about it. And I don't really remember a lot of the details because I was so drunk. I woke up in the morning and didn't even remember that it had happened. I went downstairs, and the kitten that was staying there on the couch was like, oh, like, sounds like, you did some stuff last night. I was like, what are you talking about? She's like, I heard moaning and stuff from the room. And she's like, did you sleep with Jeff? And I was like, ew, no, I would never. And she's like, well, sounds like you did. And I did. I mean, yeah. So I told Izzy about that, and for once I actually got an apology, but that's about it. It was pretty lackluster, and she kept him around. Beyond that, I still stayed after all that. So the final event that made me actually leave the chateau was when they had the mansion for 2018 Halloween. I had stayed in it the previous year, 2017. But I had rented a room already, and at the time I was going through a breakup with my ex-girlfriend, who, if you guys know me, you probably know who I'm talking about. We lived together, and she, after the breakup, started destroying my things. I caught it on video. I posted it, being very abusive to me. I had to leave that situation very quickly. I ended up having to go live with my dad, just to get out of it. So I had a room at the mansion, and my ex-girlfriend is friends with Izzy, and there's also an ex-boyfriend of mine who was manipulative and verbally and emotionally abusive to me, Danny Marino, aka Dorian Gray. And that was another one that I told Izzy about, and she decided to be friends with him after the fact. She didn't even know him before that, and when I told her about the abuse, then she befriended him. So I told her, I was like, hey, look, I'm renting a room in this house, in this Airbnb. I don't want these two people here for these reasons. And she immediately went on like defense mode and or more like offense mode, and attacked me and said that it wasn't fair of me to tell her who she couldn't invite because those are her friends and da-da-da-da, even though in the messages I fully explained that, like, these people were abusive to me. I'm going to be sleeping here. I'm going to be leaving my stuff here while I go run around, and I don't want either of them near my belongings while I'm not there, or near me when I'm in a vulnerable state, like drunk, or maybe in a scene, or whatever. And she told me that I was being like manipulative and a horrible friend, and that was what was the final straw for me, because after everything I had done for her and after everything she had swept under the rug, the fact that she would then attack me simply because I asked her to not bring certain abusers around, that was the final straw for me. But at the time, I hadn't processed all the other abuse I had gone through yet, and I was in a really bad place emotionally. I was drinking a lot. I went down a self-destructive path. I stopped talking to a lot of people that I considered friends. So I am going to take this moment to mention the fact that, you know, there are absolutely some situations there at the end that I didn't handle well. I'm not sorry for standing my ground and refusing to allow the abuse to continue. I am sorry for the friends and partners that I lost through that. They all took her side, and I know it's not my fault for not being ready to speak about what I lived through yet, but I feel like if those people had known my full story, maybe they wouldn't have taken her side. But I really didn't tell a lot of people because, like I said, I still hadn't processed it yet. I was just kind of drinking it away. But yeah, that's my full story. There's absolutely many other stories out there. Like I said, hopefully mine and Erica's videos encourage other people to speak out against what they lived through. Because I don't think that the Chateau should be allowed to prey on young, naive women anymore. You know? It's just not cool. It fucked me up. And I don't know. I guess I'll end it at that. Thanks for watching this far. Thanks for listening. Sorry if this isn't a great video. I'm not a public speaker. I never make videos, you know, so this is weird for me. But yeah, the Chateau is a cult, and like it's they made us in the Vice videos, they made us say like that it wasn't a brothel, which is true, because At least in a brothel, the girls get paid.